I'm back with you again, trying to be a little more active here. Um, this week, I'm going to introduce you to the SIOP, um, Sheltered Instructional Observational Protocol. And I put both an introductory, a short, brief example of a tape from Pearson that gives that's a publishing company, Pearson. I think they bought everybody out in the world, so they own everything. But um, the Sheltered Instructional Observational Protocol called SIOP. Some of you may be familiar with it. It claims to be a quote unquote scientific approach to teaching English as a second language and comprehensive, and it is, you're going to find that the world is full of people that are going to solve your problems in school, whether it's reading or math instruction. There are all kinds of major companies that do this, and there are also all kinds of individuals that I have questions about and have seen them in action. So everybody is like a snake oil salesman. Some of them, what would I compare it to? Probably medicine about 1930, when a lot of people came up with ideas, but full practice science had not yet really been implemented. And so people had a lot of strange ideas on how to cure diseases in the same way they can, you know, I've seen everything in ESL when I show you some of these methods. There's even one where a guy plays classical music, gets people very relaxed, and then reads to them in whatever language they are supposed to be learning, and he doesn't really explain it, but they're supposed to get used to the sound of the language. Very weird. Or hypnotism, which is only good for comedic purposes for the most part, I think. Anyhow, so PSYOP was developed originally as a way to evaluate the success of kids' language instruction and whether their ESL program was good. And then basically after they developed it as an assessment, they kind of reversed it and looked at the parts they were measuring and said, wait a minute, why don't we, instead of as an assessment, use it as an instructional tool? And I think, probably often said that assessment and instruction should be so hand in hand, they shouldn't be separate. There shouldn't be a separate test that's an alien being from the way you instruct. Otherwise, you're teaching toward whatever test you're fearing. So I like SIOP. I've been to the training a couple of times. So I chose this book for this class rather than throw a lot of different approaches and hope one of them sticks to your mind. I would rather introduce those to you and you can vary, but I like to stick with this as a solid approach that is thought through and is really good for teachers that are just beginning in teaching in ESL and they need structure. Because one thing I can say about SIOP is structure. Now, what kind of approach is it? Well, essentially, I would call it a sheltered instructional approach. That's what's in the words make up the SIOP. Instead of an observation and assessment, it's now an approach. It does some things that I really like. First of all, it gives a lot of attention to preparation. The idea of going in and trying to come up with a lesson plan for the ESL learners, it slows that down and says, well, what is it you're going to teach? And also, what do you know about your ELLs, I use English learners. What do you know about their background? I mean, not only have you sorted them out, maybe put them in newcomer or beginning or sort of, what skills do they have? How much formal education do they have? Do they know how to read already? Things like that. But what I like about it is it's very structured and it gives it's almost like a playbook. It's adaptable, as I think the New England Patriots have a great coach, and they adapt their play to whatever team they're playing, which I think is why they'll probably win the Super Bowl, but that's just my guess. Not that I love the Patriots. I'm a Green Bay Packer fan, but things aren't good there. So, and not good for the Steelers either, whom I like a lot. But I do admire when people are very successful in doing something over and over again. They've got an approach that works. And so I see PSYOP as a good middle ground, because you can use it not only with ESL, but you can use it with students that are struggling. And I think you can use it with any students. So it's not just an approach for English as a second language. It emphasizes, and you'll see if you go through and cheat and go ahead and watch the full PSYOP video, which I have put up this week, you can see the whole concept this weekend or next weekend, whatever. You can watch the whole thing. You don't have to hold back. If you want to explore it, then I don't have a way to divide it up in little clips. I didn't do that. And so you can go ahead and explore it in its entirety. Now, it's not everything we're going to do in this class, but we're going to go through the first 3 or 4 sections of it, dealing with student background and lesson preparation. I think those are really big types of approaches you might, and scenarios. I just like the structure of it. I'll just say that and be done with it. What I want you to do at first, though, is I want you to examine this. I want you to think about, in the discussion, what is it you may not agree with, or what is it you have questions about? Even if you might have them answered by going ahead and watching the whole video and reading this whole textbook, I still want you to take the time to think, what are some issues? If you, for instance, say, well, how can I have a sheltered workshop in my school? Well, workshop, whatever you call it, classroom. And sheltered meaning that, for the most part, in a sheltered situation, you're going to have kids in there that need to be, even though I wonder how sheltered they really are, if you'll have the room set up so that it is very attuned to the needs of those learning English as a second language, even though they're not first graders. You may have aspects of your room like a word wall, or you may have parts of your room that look like a foreign language room. It has posters and may have maps and how what are the directions are put up there. So you have a lot of visuals. I see the ESL classroom a lot like an elementary classroom. A lot of visuals. It's really helpful to have that. You shouldn't be in a room where it's just bare and there's nothing to look at. There should be all kinds of redundancy in there. I don't care if it's a chart with common verbs on it, or if if you've got everything in the room labeled, pencil sharpener, and you've actually got a little card over there, pencil sharpener, so the kids will see, oh, that's what it sounds like, that's what it looks like written. So there's a lot of what I call redundancy or repetition, or just good old-fashioned labeling. I've seen schools that have a lot of English language learners. They actually have labels all over the place. And it's cool, because then that would be, if you're in a French classroom studying French and the teacher's got, well, I don't know my French that well, all my nouns or anything, but you have the bookshelf has a name, the books are over there and you got it written in French there. I think that's really cool, because there needs to be something that approximates a greater reality than what you might see in the classroom. I remember a French teacher one time impressed the heck out of me. She's a first or second year French teacher, but she knew how to teach right out of the gate. She actually used refrigerator boxes and turned her room into a bunch of little shops where people did business and they sold things. And I remember she was so good. This was at Lexington. She's not there anymore. But the kids actually wrote personal journals in French in their second year of French. Became quite adept at talking about their personal issues, and they were writing about them in French. So like a diary or a journal or something. And I'd never seen that level of language acquisition or accomplishment in a foreign language classroom, that people were writing their thoughts out in that language. So that would really impress me. But I can see in PSYOP, it gives you a lot of flexibility. It's not rigidity here. It's not like you can't try some. You're not told this is how to teach reading or this is how to teach writing in the exact way. But you're given a wide framework, and you can incorporate other things into it. It's not a religion. PSYOP's not a religion. You must follow the protocol at all times. At least I never interpreted it that way. But it does emphasize clarity, so the students know. For instance, one thing, language objectives and content objectives are written on the board, and students, you check to make sure all the students know, what are we doing today? It's not like a guessing game. What's the purpose of this lesson? It's not something for the mentor teacher or the student teacher observer coming in, like you would have to do when you student teach. It is all the students know what they're doing and how they're doing it, and you construct all kinds of activities. And what I like about it is you take into account reading, writing, speaking, and listening. You try to have some aspect of that to every lesson. So you don't have students sitting silent and just practicing writing the whole time. There's variety. And it intellectually is very satisfying to me, because you think overtly about what is it you want students to do. And students should be able to explain what you're doing. Not all of them maybe, but some of them. And you can have different levels in the classroom. Not everybody's operating at a certain level. Okay, we can talk about that more later. But what it does is it paints a wide set of boundaries, and it gives you structure, so you can be the teacher you want to be within that boundary. I see this as something very useful, and I know some schools have used it. Grand Island, but the problem is schools, they not wishy-washy, but different people come in and they come up with a brainstorm that I'm going to solve whatever it is, math, reading, or upper level physics class, science, we're going to teach it differently or something. And then everybody has to, march in and start following that banner. I always say it's important that you interview in a school and you find that you have flexibility to be the teacher you feel that you have to be in order to enjoy your job. And so it's not a job, it's a vocation. So that's just a little hint. I always think if you're not free to be the teacher that you feel you have to be honest with yourself and feel good about your work, then you need to teach somewhere else or teach something else or teach in a different way or escape, whatever. Okay, well, that's all I got to say. I just wanted to give this introduction to you, and you can do the whole damn semester if you want. You can look at the whole